There's power in vulnerability, yes, but also in mystery, self-preservation, and boundaries. In relationships, it's tempting to lay everything bare, especially when emotions are intense. But there are parts of a woman's life, emotions and past, that deserve protection. Not because of shame, but because not everything is meant for full exposure. When you give a man everything, you leave no room for discovery, strength, or self-control. Every woman carries within her a hidden map of emotional landmarks, some shaped by pain, others by survival, and many by vulnerability. These aren't just memories or events, they are soft spots, the places that sting when poked, the ones that tremble even in safety. And while intimacy might tempt a woman to open up these wounds for comfort or understanding, doing so too soon or too freely can become a dangerous form of emotional exposure. A woman's emotional weak spots are sacred, not because they are shameful, but because they deserve selective access. They are born of personal battles, maybe abandonment from a parent, betrayal by a close friend, heartbreak by a first love, or even quiet struggles like body insecurities or self-doubt from childhood conditioning. These truths are fragile, and when placed in the wrong hands, they can become weapons, intentionally or not. It's important to understand this. Not every man is emotionally mature enough to handle the full scope of your emotional history. Some men, whether consciously or subconsciously, will use that knowledge to test your boundaries, manipulate your triggers, or gain emotional control. For example, if he knows you fear being left, he may pull away to make you chase. If he knows you're overly loyal to a fault, he might take your patience for granted. These actions aren't always calculated, but the results are often the same. Your weakness becomes his leverage. Additionally, revealing too much too early can shift the energy of a budding relationship. What was once curiosity and admiration can turn into caretaking, emotional overwhelm, or even quiet judgment. A woman who exposes all her hurt too fast may unintentionally position herself as someone needing healing, rather than someone standing in her power. The dynamic flips, and attraction can fade when the mystery disappears, and you're left emotionally naked before you've even built trust. This isn't to say a woman should bottle up her emotions. Expression is healthy, vulnerability is beautiful. But there's a difference between intentional sharing and emotional dumping. The former builds trust slowly, piece by piece. The latter floods the space before the foundation is laid. A wise woman knows the heart is not a diary and a man is not its pages. Before she opens her emotional vault, she observes how he reacts to the little things, her mood swings, her quiet moments, her dreams, her silence. If he can't respect the surface, he doesn't deserve the depth. In truth, emotional weak spots are not signs of weakness. They are proof of humanity, proof that you've felt deeply and survived it. But survival has taught you something deeper. Not everyone who smiles at your scars has earned the right to touch them. One of the most common traps women fall into when building a connection with a man is the instinct to be completely open, especially when it comes to their past relationships. Out of a desire to be honest, prove loyalty, or show they've moved on, they begin detailing stories of exes, old heartbreaks, and even intimate experiences that were never meant to be retold. But here's the truth. A man doesn't need and often can't handle full access to your romantic past. When a woman begins to share too much about her previous relationships, especially early on, it sets the stage for three possible outcomes, and none of them are good. First, it creates a subtle but damaging comparison trap. Whether you mean to or not, your stories will start painting pictures in his mind. He may begin to wonder, was he better in bed? Did she love him more? Is she comparing me to him now? Even if he doesn't express it out loud, these doubts simmer, and doubt is poison to masculine confidence. Second, giving too much detail can create a hidden insecurity in him. If he hears about the extravagant gifts, romantic trips, or strong emotional bonds you had with someone else, he may feel like he's entering a competition he didn't sign up for. And a man who feels like he's competing with your past will never be fully present with you in the future. Third, oversharing can backfire because men think differently than women when it comes to emotional storytelling. A woman might share a past trauma with the hope of being understood. A man, however, might interpret it as drama or baggage, especially if you haven't fully healed. And even if he listens patiently, the mental image of you with someone else, laughing, loving, or even fighting, may stay etched in his mind longer than you expect. It's not about hiding your truth, it's about protecting your peace and preserving the sacredness of your current connection. Your past shapes you, it doesn't define you. A man deserves to meet who you are now, not walk through the shadows of your emotional history. There's also the issue of power. When you reveal too much about your exes, especially if you talk about how much you tolerated, how long you waited for change, or how deeply you were hurt, it can send the wrong signal that you're someone who stays too long, forgives too much, or carries old pain into new spaces. Some men, consciously or not, will take advantage of that pattern. They'll assume that what your ex got away with, they can too. And in cases where you speak negatively about your exes, it can make a man wonder about your ability to take accountability. He might think, if all her past relationships were disasters, what's the common denominator? Harsh, yes, but it's how many men silently assess character. So what should you share? Keep it high level and emotionally neutral. It's okay to say you've had serious relationships or that you've learned valuable lessons from your past, but the depth of those stories, the pain, the mistakes, and the emotional debris, they don't belong in the hands of a man who hasn't yet earned your full vulnerability. You owe no man a full tour of your heartbreak history. Let him fall in love with your strength, your peace, and your present, not your past. Let him know you've loved before, but that you've grown stronger because of it, not broken because of it. Because a woman who moves forward with grace, not emotional luggage, is the kind of woman whose mystery breeds lasting respect. In a world where love and money often collide, one of the most important boundaries a woman can uphold in a relationship is financial discretion. Your financial world, your income, your debt, your savings, your investments, your spending habits is not a casual talking point. It's a deeply personal aspect of your life that should only be revealed when a man has demonstrated consistent responsibility, commitment, and shared long-term intentions. Until then, your financial situation is yours alone. Too often, women feel compelled to overshare their financial standing early on, especially if they're proud of their independence or conversely insecure about their financial struggles. Whether it's to appear impressive, transparent, or relatable, the impulse to reveal everything from your credit score to how much you pay in rent is often fueled by a desire for emotional closeness. But here's the hard truth. Financial openness should be earned, not given freely. When you disclose the full picture of your finances to a man who hasn't yet proven emotional maturity or long-term investment in you, several risks emerge. If you're doing well financially, owning your home, running a business, managing investments, a man who is still building himself may begin to feel intimidated, inadequate, or even competitive with you. His respect might quietly turn into resentment. Some men, rather than being inspired by your success, may feel emasculated by it. They might begin to challenge your opinions, minimize your achievements, or assert control in other areas of the relationship to reclaim dominance. On the flip side, if you reveal that you're struggling, maybe you're in debt, working multiple jobs, or rebuilding from scratch, a man may see you as someone who's vulnerable, and vulnerability without respect breeds manipulation. The wrong man might play the savior temporarily, but quietly log your financial flaws in his mind, and later he may use them against you, judging your spending habits, questioning your decisions, or seeing you as a burden rather than a partner. The moment some men believe a woman is financially comfortable, a silent entitlement can develop. They might begin to expect dinners on your tab, gifts on your dime, or even ask for financial favors in the name of love. They may never say, "You owe me," but their behavior begins to reflect that expectation. And in the case where you've already shared that you make more money than him, some men will use that knowledge to justify imbalanced effort in other areas. They'll lean back emotionally, physically, or even mentally because you can handle it. You might even find yourself voluntarily overgiving, paying for more, helping him out, softening financial discussions because you've already let him in too deep. And once that pattern begins, it becomes hard to break. You'll feel responsible and he'll feel comfortable, often without having contributed to your stability in any meaningful way. When money enters the conversation too early, it becomes a lens through which everything else is viewed. Instead of focusing on your values, character, dreams, and emotional compatibility, the dynamic may shift to comparisons of lifestyle, ambition, or earning potential. A man might begin to analyze whether you're high maintenance, too independent, or whether he can keep up with you. And that distraction can breed insecurity and second guessing on both sides. Worse, some men will try to mirror your lifestyle artificially, spending more than they can afford, taking you places they can't maintain, or pretending to share your financial values just to stay in the game. And by the time you realize that the man you're dating isn't truly aligned with you financially or mentally, the emotional bond may already be strong enough to cloud your judgment. Holding back the details of your financial life it means you're respecting the boundaries of a relationship still forming. There's a difference between being open and being vulnerable without protection. A man who genuinely wants to build a future with you will respect that you don't hand over every detail up front. In fact, he'll admire your boundaries and your ability to stand firm in them. When the time is right, when commitment, consistency, and mutual investment are clearly established, then financial transparency can become part of the shared future. But until then, a woman should never feel obligated to open her financial vault just to feel closer or more secure in a relationship. Because financial strength, like emotional strength, must be guarded until a man proves he's strong enough to carry it, not just witness it. There's a myth many women are taught early on that if you want to be loved fully, you have to share everything, every fear, every thought, every doubt, every passing emotion. That love is a space where your entire inner world should be laid bare. But the truth is, not every thought needs to be spoken, and not every fear needs to be confessed, especially not to a man who hasn't proven emotional depth or security. Men are not naturally wired for emotional processing in the same way women are. Where women often process through expression, men process through action, distance, or internal reflection. So when a woman spills her every insecurity or narrates every mental loop, "Do you still like me? What did you mean by that look? Are you pulling away? Why didn't you text back immediately?" It often overwhelms more than it connects. Even the best intentioned man can begin to feel emotionally suffocated when constantly exposed to a woman's unfiltered inner world. What she sees as transparency, he may perceive as instability. What she views as closeness, he might interpret as emotional dependency. And little by little, the respect and intrigue he once had may start to erode, not because of who she is, but because he begins to feel like he's carrying the weight of her emotional survival. Furthermore, not all thoughts and fears are rooted in truth. They're often born from trauma, overthinking, or momentary insecurity. Sharing them immediately can give them unearned power. For instance, if you're feeling jealous or unsure of his loyalty based on a past betrayal from another man, Voicing that fear without context may create defensiveness or confusion. He may feel punished for a crime. That emotional projection can quietly corrode the foundation of trust being built. It's also important to realize mystery is not manipulation, it's emotional maturity. A woman who can sit with her feelings, examine her fears, and sort through her thoughts before expressing them is a woman who commands respect. She doesn't panic at every emotional wave. She doesn't overshare in the name of honesty. She shares when it's constructive, not reactive. There is strength in self-regulation. When you give yourself the space to journal, pray, meditate, or talk to a trusted friend before unloading everything onto your partner, you practice emotional sovereignty. And emotional sovereignty is power. It shows that you can lean on someone else, but you don't need to for every passing moment of reassurance. That doesn't mean you should be emotionally guarded. Vulnerability is essential, but vulnerability must be intentional, not constant. There's a profound difference between telling a man, I'm scared of losing myself in love, because I've done that before, and bombarding him with a stream of fears every time he doesn't call or text in the way you expected. When you speak every fear out loud without context, it becomes noise. But when you choose which fears matter and speak them in a moment of calm, they become connection. A woman should also consider that some thoughts, particularly those rooted in her own self-doubt, are best confronted internally. If you're questioning your appearance, your intelligence, your worthiness, or your ability to be loved, those are wounds that need healing from within, not validation from a man. When he becomes your mirror, your emotional barometer, and your source of reassurance for everything, he'll eventually feel like your therapist rather than your partner. And when a man begins to feel more responsible for your peace than inspired by your presence, the dynamic has already shifted. He may withdraw, not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't feel emotionally safe himself. A powerful woman knows that not every passing fear deserves airtime. She trusts herself enough to know which thoughts are real and which ones are just emotional shadows. She lets the unnecessary fears pass. She voices the real ones with grace and timing, and in doing so, she protects the integrity of her emotions and the respect of the man who witnesses them. Desiring commitment is natural. Wanting love that lasts, a family, stability, or a future with a man is part of how many women are wired emotionally and biologically. But there's a vast difference between wanting commitment and projecting desperation for it. And the latter is something that should be carefully guarded in the early stages of dating and connection. When a woman begins revealing how badly she wants marriage, children, or a ring before the relationship has matured organically, she risks turning the natural rhythm of romantic development into an interview or transaction. The connection shifts from being about who the man is to what he can give her, and men feel that shift instantly. A man wants to feel chosen for who he is, not simply because he checks off the boxes in someone's timeline. The problem isn't that she wants something real, it's how urgently and openly she reveals it. When a man hears in the first few weeks of dating that a woman is ready to settle down, done wasting time, or that she needs to be married by next year, even if those things are true, it immediately adds unspoken pressure. He begins to feel that she's looking for anyone who fits her dream, not necessarily him. What he once saw as her grace and presence now starts to feel like a countdown. And once that happens, attraction begins to wane. Not because she's wrong for wanting commitment, but because the energy of desperation repels desire. A woman may not even realize she's giving this vibe. It might come in subtle ways. Constantly talking about weddings, rings, or babies on the first few dates. Overanalyzing the future after one good weekend together. Needing frequent verbal reassurance that this is going somewhere. Asking where he sees himself in 5 years, not from genuine curiosity, but to measure his readiness. the man, these signals feel less like genuine connection and more like a test or a trap. Even if he does want something long term, he may back away if he feels like the relationship is being fast tracked toward expectations he hasn't committed to yet. And here's another important truth. The more desperate a woman appears for a future, the less confident she seems in her present. A man is drawn to a woman who is fully rooted in her now, who enjoys herself, her independence, her passions, and allows space for a relationship to unfold without force. He wants to feel that she's with him because he adds value to her already fulfilling life, not because she's clinging to the hope that he'll be her escape from loneliness or an answer to a time. Desperation also has an energy. It can feel like control, like emotional hunger, like trying to force a seed to grow by pulling it out of the ground every day to see if it's sprouted. And men, especially masculine men, pull away from that energy. They want to pursue, not be cornered. They want to rise into commitment, not be pushed into it. Moreover, some women unknowingly tie their value to whether or not they can secure commitment. If a man senses that she feels unworthy or anxious unless he chooses her, the power dynamic shifts. Suddenly, he becomes the prize and she becomes the pursuer. This reversal not only alters how he sees her, it also quietly damages how she sees herself. But when a woman hides her desperation, not her desires, but her desperation, she retains mystery, power, and presence. She lets him wonder about her expectations rather than having everything spelled out. She allows the relationship to unfold in curiosity, chemistry, and time, not in deadlines, pressure, or hidden ultimatums. Letting a man experience her, respect her, and pursue her without knowing every inner hope from day one makes her feel like a breath of fresh air. And in a world full of people trying to rush connection, that patience, that presence, that calm confidence is magnetic. A woman's dreams, ambitions, and long-term strategies are not just plans, they are extensions of her inner power. They're not just about what she wants to achieve, but who she is becoming in the process. And while it might feel natural to share these things with a man as soon as intimacy or emotional closeness builds, doing so without discernment can be a mistake. Your power moves, especially the ones that involve personal growth, business goals, lifestyle shifts, or silent battles, deserve privacy until a man proves he's not only trustworthy, but secure enough to respect your vision without interfering. Every woman has power moves brewing beneath the surface. Maybe it's her plan to leave her 9 to 5 and launch a business. Maybe it's her intention to relocate, pivot her career, write a book, buy property, or reclaim her identity after a divorce or difficult phase. These moves are not just to-do lists. They are the evolution of her soul. And such sacred evolution must not be shared with someone who hasn't earned front row access to that part of her life. Some men, when exposed to a woman's full-scale vision too early, begin to feel challenged, intimidated, or even threatened. Rather than celebrate her ambition, they may try to reshape it, downplay it, or distract her from it. It's not always malicious. It can stem from insecurity or the fear that she'll outgrow him. The moment a man sees that your plans don't revolve around him or that you're moving forward with or without his input, he may attempt to assert emotional control to feel safe again. On the other side of the spectrum, there are men who will mirror your ambitions without embodying them. They'll pretend to be on your level, echoing your goals or aligning with your values just to keep you close. But the moment challenges arise, you realize they lack the depth to walk beside you. By revealing your roadmap too early, you may unknowingly teach him how to play the part instead of discovering who he truly is. Moreover, sharing your power moves in detail can dilute their potency. Energetically, every dream carries momentum. When you talk too much about what you will do before actually doing it, the energy of the dream gets released into the atmosphere instead of being stored as fuel. Not everything you're working on should be public knowledge, even in private relationships. Some plans are still in incubation. Sharing them too soon opens them up to doubt, criticism, and interference, and even subtle negative energy or judgment from someone close can affect your motivation. A woman must also understand this. Her greatest power is not just in what she does, but in how she moves, quietly, strategically, intentionally. Not everyone deserves to know where she's going until she arrives. It's not about being sneaky, it's about being protective. Letting a man in on your master plan should be a privilege, not a starting point. Just because he asks doesn't mean he's ready to receive it. And just because he listens doesn't mean he understands the depth of what you're creating. When you keep your deepest moves close to your chest, you maintain control of your energy, your momentum, and your identity. You are not defined by what you say you're going to do, but by what you actually do and how you do it without seeking applause, validation, or permission. By keeping these ambitions sacred, a woman allows herself space to grow without needing to explain, defend, or justify every step. And in that silence, power builds. One of the most powerful elements of attraction is emotional pacing, how slowly or quickly two people reveal how deeply they're feeling one another. And for women, especially those who love deeply or lead with their heart, it can be tempting to express attachment before it's fully safe to do so. But showing a man your emotional attachment too early, before he's shown consistency, stability, and clarity, can create a dynamic that shifts the balance of power, often in a subtle yet lasting way. Women often bond emotionally before they bond physically. Even small gestures, his tone of voice, a late night conversation, an act of kindness, or him opening up emotionally can make a woman begin to feel seen, chosen, and connected. That emotional spark feels magical. But it's in these early moments that many women make a critical mistake. They express what they feel too quickly, too openly, and without ensuring that those feelings are genuinely mutual and earned. Phrases like, "I've never felt this way before," "I feel like I'm already falling for you," or "You're everything I've been looking for," may seem romantic in the moment, but to a man who is still exploring his own emotions or testing the depth of the connection, it can feel like pressure, even if unintentional. He may not yet be sure what he wants from you, and hearing that you've already emotionally attached yourself can trigger fear, obligation, or retreat. A woman's emotional attachment, when revealed too soon, can also flip the dynamic from one of mutual exploration to one of emotional imbalance. He begins to feel like the one being pursued, not the pursuer. And while healthy relationships are built on mutual effort, men, especially emotionally masculine men, tend to value what they work for. When the woman emotionally arrives too early, when she gives her heart before he's shown he deserves it, he may feel less compelled to earn her love, attention, or trust. What often happens next is subtle but dangerous. The man starts to pull away, not because he doesn't like her, but because the dynamic has become uneven. He's now in the power seat emotionally. The woman, having exposed her attachment early, begins to wait, wonder, and chase without realizing it. She might send more texts, seek more reassurance, ask more questions about where the relationship is going, all because her feelings have already been declared and she now fears being left without reciprocation. Another dimension to consider is how men interpret emotional openness. While women see it as connection, men can interpret it as readiness for commitment, dependence, or even emotional volatility, depending on the way it's expressed. If you tell a man that you're already emotionally invested before he's done anything to build that bond over time, he may wonder why your heart is so available. And instead of seeing it as genuine connection, he may question your judgment, standards, or past patterns of attachment. Furthermore, expressing emotional attachment too early can limit a woman's ability to observe. Once she's declared her feelings, she may unconsciously start excusing red flags, minimizing her boundaries, or giving more than she receives just to keep the emotional high going. That early declaration becomes a trap because now, instead of assessing the relationship, she's already invested in the idea of what it could be. This is why emotional discipline is a woman's silent strength. Holding back doesn't mean faking or playing games. It means allowing space for the relationship to unfold naturally. It means letting his actions dictate your reactions, not the other way around. A woman who remains emotionally present but emotionally grounded is magnetic because she feels like a challenge, a mystery, and a woman with self-control. She can feel deeply, but she reveals it slowly, only to the man who shows up, stays consistent, and earns each layer of her heart. In truth, your emotions are sacred currency. And when you spend that currency too early, you may find yourself bankrupt before you even know if the relationship is worth the investment. There is power in pacing. There is power in letting a man wonder how deeply you feel, not because you're hiding, but because you're wise enough to know that true emotional safety is built over time, not given away in moments of vulnerability.